Hey everybody, and welcome to a brand new installment of Nintendo News Report for Tuesday, March 17th, 2015. I'm your host, Alexander Kalafi, and with me to talk about special kind of breaking news, Scott Thompson.
Hello, let's go mobile.
And Neil Ronan.
Hello, everybody.
So, everyone woke up this morning to crazy Nintendo news, which is something that seems to happen every few weeks now, where Nintendo is revealing, like, probably 10 to 20% of their huge news through press releases released early morning on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, can I just say, I had to wake up at 4 a.m. today to make my son a bottle, and I had my phone in my pocket, so I was letting the water warm up. I'm kind of just like browsing through my email, and I see that press release, and I'm like half asleep, and I'm like, Nintendo partners with DeNA? I don't know what that means, and I just like ignored it, and then I wake up 2.5 hours later to go to work and look at Twitter for a second. Everyone's like, well, Nintendo's going mobile, and I go, oh, I guess I should have like read that email a little more closely.
You know what's kind of funny is I had the same kind of reaction. Like I woke up, my alarm went off, I checked my phone, and like I just glanced at my email and saw the press release coming, and I'm just like, oh, okay, Nintendo's doing mobile stuff, and just fell back asleep. And I think I had myself convinced when I went back to sleep that like that was a dream. Like, it was just like, Nintendo's doing mobile stuff. Oh, that's crazy. And then I woke up and checked my phone more, and was just like, holy crap, this is big.
Yeah.
Yup, it was, yeah, I had a similar experience to you guys. I woke up this morning, and then I looked at the start of the email. It was from Nintendo, and it just had some company name I hadn't heard of, and I assumed they had just won another lawsuit, because we seem to get those every month or two.
They always want to.
But in this but in this case, I saw like replies from Danny and Neil and like 4 other staffers, so I knew that this had to be something way bigger. And you know what? It was. Because at a recent investors meeting, Nintendo announced a partnership with DeNA, not DeNA, not D North America, but DeNA. To work with Nintendo, go ahead.
No, I forgot. I was reading something. I know like I read a little bit about them, and I forget the reason for their name, but it's something about like delivering lots of fun to everybody or something like that. It's something goofy. But it's weird that it's spelled DeNA, but it's actually DeNA.
Right, to work with Nintendo on new original games and software for mobile platforms. A new unified membership service between PC, mobile, and Nintendo services, and a new dedicated Nintendo system, which we will be talking about soon. So, just a little bit of setup. DeNA is a mobile platform maker and an e-commerce website provider for Japan. I think there's a similar service called Line that's popular in Japan, where it's kind of like a social network and like a central.
It's more like. I think it's a little more comparable to something like what was formerly big, like Open Faint or Game Center. I think it's more along those lines.
Okay.
And I know they've done work with Disney actually. They developed I think it's called Marvel War of Heroes, which I might actually check out because I was talking to a friend of mine who works at Marvel, who when I mentioned the name DeNA, was like, oh hey, we work with them. And I kind of I might check out that game because that could be a little bit of the hint of the future of what we might see from Nintendo mobile games, because that was internally developed at DeNA. And they've also, I think they've worked with other big companies as well, but they've been around since the late 90s. They've kind of proven themselves to be a very successful company in Japan. I think they have 30 million users, something like that.
Okay. And then they run Mobage, Mobage, which you can get that in the U.S., you can get it in Canada, you can get it in Taiwan, mainland China, and Japan, if you want to try it out for yourself. And I'm thinking I will want to do that to see how they're going to handle all of these beloved Nintendo IPs, because that is what they were doing. Nintendo is giving them full access through this partnership to make games and applications.
It's a partnership. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the major key here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be DeNA making all of it. God, I can't shake it, because when I read it, that's how I read it. It's not going to be DeNA making all these games with Nintendo just being kind of like, good job, guys. As far as when they had their press conference and went more on about it, it seemed like DeNA was going to be providing more of the infrastructure, which for Nintendo is fantastic, because if there's one thing that we've learned in the past 10 years of online multiplayer and online stores is Nintendo's terrible at that. It's always like real cute sometimes, but it's horrible. Like, no account systems. Guess who could probably implement an account system into Nintendo platforms? DeNA.
Not one can, but who
and
will?
that's, that was, I think, Iwata's comment, or someone, I don't know exactly who it was. It might have been someone from DeNA making the comment that the reason why Nintendo and DeNA ended up partnering was because DeNA was okay with being in the background and letting Nintendo be in front. And I think a lot of the other potential partners wanted to be like in line with Nintendo. And it seems like going forward that DeNA is going to, they are also going to be developing games with Nintendo IP, but for the most part they're going to be doing the back end, the server management, the stuff that Nintendo's always been kind of crappy at, and Nintendo's going to be focusing more on making games, which I think as long as nothing goes south with their relationship, this could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Am I lacking?
No, you're okay. I think we lost Alex. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Like this is the perfect solution. Oh, Alex, you there?
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm here.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me now? We're okay?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Cool. So they're making games and apps with DeNA, with any Nintendo IP, potentially. Like, nothing
Although
is
probably
off the
not
table.
Pokemon, because the Pokemon company kind of does their own thing.
Yeah.
Right, that definitely has the least chance, even though it probably has the most potential, too.
I mean, it could still happen.
But,
like, I wouldn't be shocked if we see a modified version of Pokemon Shuffle show up on mobile platforms this fall. Like, that makes sense.
And Pokemon,
it's already there.
So they made apps for the iPhone and stuff before Nintendo did, because they did the Pokédex, they did the Pokemon TV thing that's running now. There is some precedent, and we'll see if that turns out. But they're going to make games and apps for Nintendo platforms, and it sounds like it's not going to be them releasing a new game every 2 months, because in the discussion they were commenting on that, Iwata was like, a lot of games, like, they get put on the App Store, and then they, like, sort of lose any popularity they get within months. This happens like Crossy Road and some of the other ones that came out recently. So what it seems like they're planning on doing maybe...
But didn't Crossy Road make like $30 million?
It made a huge amount of money, which is why Nintendo's doing this in the first place, but the lifespan for these is very short compared to what Nintendo likes to do, which is to make things that survive a very long time and make these games that are at full price forever. So what it seems like they're planning on doing is to make these games that can last a long time, like that are almost like a platform in themselves. Kind of like Rock Band 4, where they are a game, but they will grow over time.
The better comparison for that is like Steel Diver Sub Wars or Pokemon Shuffle. I might be the only person from this trio that's been playing Pokemon Shuffle pretty regularly. But they just had like they just had an update. The game's been out for a month, I think. Yeah, about a month. And they just had an update where they had like an online tournament, or sort of like an online competition where everybody plays a stage, and whoever gets the highest star or the highest score will get like a bunch of coins and stuff, and everyone who participates will get a minimal reward. And that game gets regularly updated, and it seems like they're responding to feedback. They're fixing the horrendous bugs where people can get stuff without paying for anything. And I mean, it seems like a lot of what there's been small things that Nintendo's been doing over the past 2 years. It seems like it's been building to this to see if it's something viable that they can do. And I'm kind of excited to see what happens.
Right, and like you said, Steel Diver is kind of the same way. I mean, they've updated that game to, like, originally I think you couldn't have matches with your friends, but they patched that in. They improved the Morse code stuff.
They even patched in where because it was free to play, and that like you could play with like only one ship, but then they patched in where you had to use play coins in order to play if you had the free version.
Right.
And people got really mad about that, so they patched it out.
Right. Which is really cool. Yeah, I feel like they've been really responsive about that. So, and I do agree. All these things seem like they were like trial runs for eventually moving to mobile. And we were having this discussion with Andy, a connectivity and newscast regular, at least I wasn't having a discussion, but I saw you guys having a discussion earlier today about Pokemon Shuffle and how it feels like a mobile game, but because of the hardware, it doesn't really act like a mobile game in terms of like spending money to to gain more turns or whatever, because it's such a slow process. So like having a company now that knows how to do that and can implement that on hardware that supports that kind of quick exchange of money, to gain extra lives or extra turns and then get back in the game. Like I think it's going to work very well.
Yep.
Yeah,
just
bring Pokemon Shuffle to iPhone. It'll be fine.
Yeah, done.
But yeah, whether it be Pokemon Shuffle or whether it be games that because a lot of games on mobile do that thing where they add like new levels and characters and stuff over time, like real substantial content updates with like new assets and stuff. So hopefully they do that. Either way, they are trying to build games that have a longer survivability rate than other mobile games. But just to go into the history of this a bit. It seems like DeNA approached Nintendo originally in 2010, I think it said in the presentation.
I thought the talks started last summer, right?
But I think so. The talks got serious like last summer,
Okay.
I think. But I think they approached them about this earlier, and then they kept talking for a while, and then it seems like they got serious in the last year or so. But either way, I think DeNA approached them first, like, hey, we can really make this happen. And then Nintendo was like still considering it, but pretty uneasy. And then they realized the potential of the mobile space and how it's just become a part of everyone's lives, and they decided that they had to get involved. I
can't wait to see what other potential suitors there were.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that someone like a Gree probably pushed really hard to get in on that, but I know that Gree is trying to make a much bigger splash, whereas I think DeNA is a little bit of they're a smaller company in scope.
Right. As far as I'm concerned, I have no idea what kind of games are going to end up on this. But all this means
will be original games. They won't be ports of existing games.
I wanted to bring that up.
So what do you virtual console dreams out of sight, out of mind, because it's not going to happen.
Why would they ask?
We want to make games that actually work on touchscreens and mobile devices. We don't want to just even be like, hey, it's Mario and you got a virtual D-pad. Fuck that.
Yeah, I think that's really good because that's what I was worried about, that like this was something like this was going to be. So I'm really happy with that. I think some people are kind of disappointed by that, but I mean, why like hedge these games like onto platforms where they're not going to work? I mean, have you guys played like an old?
I played Mega Man 2 on my friend's iPhone.
It's terrible.
And I wanted to. I was like, why did you spend money on this? What's wrong with you? Like, you own a Wii. Go get the virtual console version.
I think
actually a functional game.
I downloaded like Sonic 2 at some point or something, and it was the worst. It was the absolute worst.
And like that's the thing is, I'm definitely not a huge mobile gamer. I'm a big enough of a Nintendo fanboy / fan. I don't know what I qualify in anymore. I run a Nintendo website. I don't know what that makes me these days. But like I'll totally check out whatever they put out. But the mobile games that I find most interesting are things that are built to be a mobile game, like Space Team or Threes. Boundin is another really cool one. Things that take advantage of what the platform offers. And I mean that extends to what make the best Wii U games, what make the best 3DS games, best Wii games, are things that took advantage of the platform. And that's all I really want to see. I could really, of course, I want to see like, oh, an F-Zero mobile game or something like that. Like I don't know what that would be, but yeah, sure, I want to see that. But I just want to see fun games that I can play on my phone.
That would work really well.
All I really care about
is Advance Wars.
Yep.
Like give me that with like an emphasis on multiplayer combat, like asynchronous
Hero
multiplayer.
Academy.
Exactly.
It's another great example of you take Hero Academy blatantly and just put Advance Wars skin on it, and that's an awesome game.
Yeah. Right. Just focus on multiplayer. Yeah, have it where you're taking turns at different times where, no matter when you can get to the game, it's perfect. Like that would work so well. But yeah, no platformers. I don't need that. Get that shit off of iPhone.
Unless it takes good advantage of the what is actually one of the companies that DeNA bought, Engimoco, which was made by former EA guys, like right when the iPhone App Store launched. They made that game Rolando, which was another really good use of the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that Nintendo are working on these games, all this really means to me is that since they are Nintendo and since no one can utilize hardware better than they can, all this means to me is that we're getting more Nintendo games than we had before, and that it's going to be on hardware that we haven't played Nintendo games on before. So
Right.
I see no reason to worry. If they're making original games that utilize the platform, Nintendo won't release something that's not great.
Right.
At least, especially in their first impression. I mean, the Wii U was weird, but at the very least, Nintendo's games, they're always going to give it the effort that the games deserve, and they're always going to be incredibly polished. So I don't think, however this launches, when it happens, probably later this year, is going to be broken. They might still be getting the hang of things.
It's not a probably, by the way. This is all launching in fall.
Right, so that it's not just the membership thing. The mobile stuff is launching.
I believe so. Like, I think we will be seeing games in the fall, or at least it'd be super dumb if they're like, here's our membership thing that you use on your phone, but you can't do anything on your phone except for just look at this screen. Actually, no, that's probably something they would do.
I'd say that's so Nintendo to like launch it not complete or with nothing to like utilize it.
Hey, we have this Miiverse app. By the way, it's not really an app; it's a website.
I wonder if they're going to. I wonder if they're going to talk about this stuff at E3 because I wonder. Well, actually, they're going to have a Nintendo Direct, so fuck the audience and how they would react in that case. Well, they really can do whatever they want.
I was talking about this with Nick Bray, one of our dudes from Australia, who was actually going to be on the show. So hi Nick, if you're watching this later. But I was talking to him, and he made the comment about like, are they going to have this at E3? And I think honestly, yes. Oh, yeah. Like, if this is going to be that, like, if you don't have this stuff at E3, then it's not a big part of your future. And this is a big part of their future. We're going to be seeing Nintendo mobile games at E3.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, that only makes sense. And in all honesty, with this new, like, I know, Alex, you've talked about how, I mean, it's also pretty blatant that there might be an Animal Crossing on Wii U in development. There is an Animal Crossing game in development.
They've talked about it. They've pretty much said there is an Animal Crossing game in development, if not those exact words.
But what if that Animal Crossing game came out on mobile instead of Wii U?
It wouldn't be instead at this point, I think, because there's no way that game hasn't been in development since New Leaf ended.
Yeah.
Like, that game has definitely been in development since 2012. Now, there may be an addition to Animal Crossing.
Pikmin 3 also branched 2 systems and 7 years to release or something like that, so I wouldn't really be too shocked if they got halfway through development on Animal Crossing Wii U and were like, hey, Wii U's doing pretty bad. What if we tried to put this out on a platform where it would succeed?
See, I don't know. I really don't see that happening. Like, I don't see, because I feel like they want this to funnel into like buying Nintendo hardware. Like, that's the point. Like, I feel like the mobile stuff is going to be like sort of a gateway drug into buying Nintendo hardware proper, and that's why, which we'll talk about a little bit. I feel like that's why the future Nintendo hardware was announced today, to kind of like calm anyone who worries that Nintendo's going to go all mobile. Yeah. So I don't think there's any way they're going to release like a top tier franchise on mobile. It's got to be spin-offs and kind of smaller scopes that lead into.
But then you cheapen the potential for what you could be doing with the mobile platform. If you're just like, oh no, that's where we put the B tier shit. Like, then it's like almost like you're not, like, it seems like this they are jumping in the deep end with
See,
this, which is scary in a way, but at the same time, like, this isn't them dipping a toe in the water. Them dipping a toe in the water is doing some free
Pokedex app.
Pokedex app, or doing free-to-play experiments with Rusty's Real Deal Baseball and Steel Diver, or just like, we're gonna put up this one game on mobile. Like, they're creating an entire platform and system around it.
Oh, absolutely. But see, I wouldn't think of it as B tier. I think of it more as this is where a lot of those quirky kind of eShop only titles that they've been developing for the last few years, like, this is where they're going to go. Like, I don't think those go to eShop anymore. I think they go on mobile. These kind of small, interesting ideas. This is where they end up now. They don't go on the eShop anymore to just sort of die. Yeah. They go on mobile where millions and millions of people are going to be able to play them.
Yeah, like, I mean, Picross, Pushmo, put
exactly.
Fox Boy on it.
Any of those would thrive on mobile, I feel like. So that's where I see it going. Mm-hmm. But I am excited. I kind of have I have this vision in my head that there's this whole warehouse of like 3DS Circle Pad Pros that aren't being used now, that are being retrofitted to just work with iPhones, so you can have actual controls with your iPhone. But you just put your iPhone right in there.
I don't know. I know that.
No, I'm just kidding. That's not real.
Controllers are really good on my iPhone. Like, no, if I'm carrying around my phone, I'm not carrying around like an appendage to put on it at all.
No, I know. It won't happen.
But like, I mean, I think that it would probably behoove them to. I mean, maybe it is that Animal Crossing Wii U and this mobile game come out around the same time, but I feel like some form of Animal Crossing, whether it's a mobile-specific version or a modified version of the real thing, that seems like something that would make sense on a mobile platform.
Yeah, I could see it letting you check into your town on the Wii U game and maybe like complete little tasks or like just see what's going on, answer mail, maybe do small things, but it's hooked into the Wii U game. And again, that's another thing that's to funnel you into buying a Wii U and the Wii U version.
Because that is, I mean, something that Iwata said in this presentation was that, you know, the goal of these games are to bring people to Nintendo hardware, and that's what they've talked about. Whenever they've talked vaguely about their mobile plans in the past 2 years, that's what they've always brought it back to is we want to have mobile experiences that will bring people to buy 3DSs and Wii U's or NXs.
I think what's really exciting is this just shows how aggressive Nintendo's being, and especially when you look at other things that have leaked. So now we know that there's possibly a Mario movie in the works. We know that there's possibly a Zelda TV series in the work for Netflix. We know that Nintendo's going mobile. Like, they are very much aggressively branching out into all forms of like entertainment medium to draw people in.
I think the question is a point where I mean, Nintendo's the Disney of video games, and I think they got to a point where they realized, oh shit, we're losing our grip on this.
Yep.
And that's where I think a lot of this is coming from, is they are trying to assert their grip on being the Disney of video games, because, in all honesty, if you look at what's happened the past couple of years, they're kind of losing it a little bit. But if they have a Mario movie, Zelda TV show, they're mobile, they're up in everyone's faces, then they'll be back to, it'll be like there was never any doubt that they were the Disney of video games.
Mm-hmm.
What else were they going to do, though, is my question to people, like, in general. Like, this is them adapting. This is them, so, with Sega, there were two, like, paths they could have went. They could have just panicked, lost all their shit, and then completely collapsed over the next 10 years after their last game system started to fail. Or they could be smart. They could adapt, and they could grow as a company. And I think Nintendo is taking the path that Sega didn't, getting as aggressive as fast as possible, because if you don't adapt to this market that's changing faster than it ever did in the past, you're not going to survive. This is Nintendo deciding we're going to still be Nintendo from now on. It's and that's what makes me so excited, is Nintendo's being smarter. Nintendo cares. Nintendo's being the Nintendo I love again, which it really hasn't been that much for the last few years. This aggressive shit that's getting into new uncharted territories
makes it different from what they've done the past couple of years, outside of like they're doing mobile and they said they weren't going to do mobile.
It's the fact that in the last few years we've been getting Mario 3D World. We've been getting a Zelda game, which frankly I didn't like that much. We're getting a lot of games. So I've talked about this many times on Connectivity. One of my problems with Nintendo over the last few years is that they've been going back to the well too much with their game franchises. They've been getting too comfortable, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Wii U wasn't doing very well early on, is because most of their games weren't that aggressive.
But you talk about them adapting to the market. What the hell is every other platform doing? How many? I was doing the math that there's been like what? If you include the PSP and the DS games, there's been like 10 Assassin's Creed games in like the past 6 years or something like that. There's been a Call of Duty game every year since like 2005. Like, that's what every other publisher is doing, is going back to the well repeatedly, because AAA games are kind of too big to fail.
It's not what the other consoles are doing, it's what video games are doing, and video games are moving towards mobile. Well, video games are accepting mobile as a large pillar. Well, Nintendo's adapting to video games, not console video games.
Yeah.
But anyways, just one last point before we move on, since we've been talking about this the last 20 minutes, is that because DeNA focuses on Android platforms, I think it's safe to say that whatever new will definitely be on Android, and also definitely be on Apple, because it's the superior dominant platform in America. Yeah. So I think anyone who's worried, like, will it come to Android because I only have Android? And I'm one of those people. I only have Android. I definitely think Nintendo's going to...
This 5 right here.
Hell yeah. Anyways, one of the things they also talked about is that in addition to mobile games, DeNA is helping Nintendo work on a new account system. The very same account system, or membership program, I should phrase it because I think that's how they said it, that will not replace Club Nintendo, but it's the thing Nintendo was talking about when they were saying that Club Nintendo is going bye-bye. And that's happening this fall. And they didn't say too much about this other than it's coming this fall, and that also it's going to be unified between PC, mobile, 3DS, Wii U, and the eventual NX platform that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. NX or N-Cross. We'll see.
I mean, what they said about NX is basically that there's a new hook. So if you were worried that it was just going to be a traditional, boring old console, worry not.
Which it could have been. It could have been. They could have gotten scared.
Maybe that's the hook. They're like, guess what? There's no gimmick. It's just a video game. We made the GameCube 2.0. Love it.
It probably just streams your iPhone games to your television. That's it.
I mean, I think, and they've kind of hinted at this in the past, is I think that NX is going to be something that will kind of bring handheld and home consoles into one device.
Yep.
You won't have the 3DS and the Wii U. You will have the NX or whatever it's eventually going to be called, and that'll be something that you can, bring home and plug in like a Chromecast to your TV or something, and then take with you on the go and have it function as a 3DS. Or maybe it speaks to your smartphone, so you don't need to bring it everywhere you go. Something like that. And I don't know, that would be pretty cool. The way that I play games right now is heavily on portable, so if I could have that ability to kind of have my portable with me and put it into a TV if I'm near a TV, that sounds great.
The only thing that I kind of wonder about that is, isn't that something I feel like Sony has kind of pushed with the PSP and the Vita and has never really taken off for them?
Well, they only dip their toe in the water. That's the problem. Especially with the PSP and PS3, they very lightly tried it. And they got more aggressive with the Vita and PS4, but by the time they did it, and which was when the Vita had already been out for a year and over a year and a half, it was already too late.
When PlayStation TV came out, what was that? That was last fall, so that would have been 2.5 years after the Vita came out.
And a year after the PS4.
I mean,
yeah.
Like, I think if you're going to do that, it's kind of like with the motion controls as well, like why the Move never took off, because the Move came out, 3-4 years after PS3 came out. Like, you need to do that from the start. And I think that's where Nintendo was successful to a certain degree with the gamepad and off-TV play, is that was in the box. So you got that, and I still hear, even though not a lot of people are buying Wii U's, people love off-TV play. And a lot of people that I talk to that are kind of like, I guess, a little more on the periphery of video games, when I tell them, I'm like, oh yeah, I can use my Vita as a second screen on the PS4, they had no idea about it, because it's even though that functionality was there on day one, it wasn't something that was in the box.
And so it's such an investment. I mean, to buy 2 pieces of hardware like that, I mean, you're talking over $600 now at this point, so close to that.
And at launch, it would have been $600+ day one if you wanted to get the PS4 and the Vita.
If you asked me yesterday, if you told me yesterday that Nintendo's next console would be a console handheld hybrid, I would have called you an idiot. I would have called you crazy, because that would be taking away one of Nintendo.
For a while.
Here's why I would have called you crazy: is that Nintendo really only had 2 main income sources, the 3DS and the Wii U, and that takes away their one of their main 2 streams of income in the process of making this new console. However,
but I mean, even yesterday they had quality of life, so it's not that preposterous. And also, can we really say that the Wii U is a source of income?
Yes, it's trying to be a source of income. At least there are 2.
Actually, I think my crass remark aside, I think the Wii U was profitable in this fiscal year. 3DS, maybe not.
But either way, as of right now, Nintendo has 2 main pieces of hardware making it money, the 3DS and Wii U. And taking one of those away for such an aggressive move and having nothing to potentially replace it would have been insane to me. However, with this news this morning, not only did they say they were working on unifying PC, 3DS, Wii U, and everything together with this membership thing, which is kind of like, hey, maybe they're moving in this direction. Not only is the codename for this system NX, which I was joking earlier, but really could mean N-Cross, at least to some extent, and then also the fact that they're moving towards mobile now and will probably have a new major source of income. There's a better chance now than there ever was in the past for this literally being their attempt at doing a handheld console hybrid. Now it makes sense to me. Now, it seems like they have all the chips in place.
I mean, especially seeing them kind of struggle with HD development, and I mean, yeah, they've kind of ironed that out as they've gotten used to it, but like, you look at some of the development paths of some of their games in the past couple of years, like for example, Link Between Worlds, like, the director left that project for almost a year because they needed people to work on Nintendo Land. Like, and that's something that's regularly happened. Where if you look, pretty much everybody in the company worked on New Super Mario Brothers U and Nintendo Land because they didn't know what they were doing. It's kind of like how that became an all hands on deck effort, and it still seems where if you look at the stream of games, especially without third party support, I think they're struggling to support two platforms. They have their moments. Right now, 3DS is great, but Wii U, you don't have that much. And that's kind of been an ongoing problem, is that it seems like one system will get a lot of games and then one system won't. So.
Right, they flip flop. It's one falls behind, so then they almost devote a whole year to releasing big games on that, and then the other platform suffers because there's third party support is kind of sparse, especially on Wii U. 3DS manages okay, but. Yeah.
The big question with this is that how would they pull it off on a technical level? And then I'm trying to think about this, would they have to develop two games? Would they use something like Unity where the game will run on everything? Will they have to create HD assets for all their games or not HD assets for all their games?
Versus Donkey Kong.
I'm saying, but how will that work with the next Legend of Zelda? How will that work with Mario 3D Universe? How will that work on these games that are meant to look amazing? Will they just make two sets of assets? Will Nintendo have this in place on a technical level when a handheld and a powerful console are going to have two very separate architectures, at least to some extent? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that if anyone can figure it out, Nintendo can. It's just I can't figure out how they're going to do it or how they're going to keep it not complicated enough that some semblance of third party will at least try to jump to the platform. Because even if third party's not there now, Nintendo will try to get third party support. And I'm just trying to figure out how they'll do it.
Now, as you correctly pointed out in your hands-on from PAX East, Xenoblade Chronicles 3D does kind of look like butt. But why do you think Monster Games has spent this entire past couple years porting Wii games to 3DS? Maybe that's deliberate. Because then you have people with experience in bringing console games to the handheld. So if you were to do this crazy fusion of handheld and home console, you'd have developers that have experience with bringing games to each system. And I mean that could be something where they're working to find out a way to get it so that way up-resing and down-resing or whatever isn't too painful.
Maybe the handheld just streams it from the main box, but you can only keep the handheld 5 feet away from the main box.
Sounds like a Nintendo thing to do.
That's the Wii U. That's my bad.
It'll be 10 feet this time.
Double the performance.
If you think about it now, though, the Vita's power, and the 3DS was slightly more powerful, if not substantially more powerful than the PSP. The Vita, where it is now, isn't that insanely far away from HD level. So maybe if Nintendo's next handheld does, even if barely, make it to the HD territory, maybe it won't be that hard downscaling it from the Wii U.
I mean, mentioning Vita, look at how many PS4 and Vita games are cross-buy.
All indies that could probably run on less powerful hardware.
On PS4 and Vita.
Mm-hmm.
It's being done.
Yeah. It's more and yes, they actually have done it in some cases, PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale and Sly Cooper. And I guess to a way less extent, this doesn't really count, but that Assassin's Creed Vita game I'm just wondering if a full port is going to be necessary.
I mean, maybe there will be certain things that are exclusive to, like how, for example, with the Wii U, not everything is off TV compatible. Maybe some games will only work on the TV because it would look like ass on the smaller screen or something like that. Like, I think there's ways around this if they run into technical hurdles.
And
this
is
all just a possibility. They might just be like, nah, we're having a 4DS and we're having a Wii U too. Like, let's go.
We should also note that Nintendo said they're going to start talking about the NX next year in 2016. But I think that we're going to be getting a spring 2017 launch for this, and Animal Crossing Wii U is going to come out fall 2016.
Scott,
that's my official prediction.
What do you think about the NX? When is it coming out?
God, who knows? It definitely won't be 2016. 2017 at the earliest. But given the position the Wii U is in, that's probably when it's going to happen. I think they start talking about it next year. They get everything kind of ramped up leading into 2017, and we kind of enjoy the very short, confusing life that was the Wii U.
Yeah. Although at that point, if it makes it to 2017, the Wii U lasted as long as the GameCube did.
5 years?
As long as the N64 did.
Yeah, but going like
as long as the Super Nintendo did.
Sure, but going by the standards established in the last generation, I mean, every console lasted what, 7, 8 years?
Then the Wii U would have lasted 1 year less than the Wii.
Okay, well, that's a difference.
I think that the Wii U is going to like limp with like a leg missing to 2017. But if it makes it to 2017 and doesn't completely like just fall off the market entirely, that's a success. For how terrible the system was doing. It might sniff 20 million units. Might sniff it.
Yeah. The game changer, Zelda.
But
that's the game changer. That's the
I think that holiday 2017 is a very safe bet. I think if Nintendo wanted to be very aggressive and if they've already started on game development for the NX, then a holiday 2016 release would not be out of the realm of possibility. However, I think that would be crazy because I think in order to hit 2016, they would be rushing hardcore, and that bit them in the ass with the Wii U. So I think they would learn from their mistakes and realize, hey, we could maybe push this out this year, but let's give it another year. Let's refine it. I mean, if you go back to what Nintendo systems have done the best, it's the ones that have had that kind of potential year to be refined more. Like the Wii was something that they took very slow because of how radical it was, and by the time that came out, it blew everyone's faces off. N64 and GameCube might have been rushed a little more. Super Nintendo, as we know, because of how successful the NES was, the Super Nintendo was held back for like, I think 2 years. I like the quote from, I think it was Mark McDonald of on 8-4 Play when they had like a Super Nintendo like 25th anniversary thing a couple years ago. He made the comment about how the reason why Link to the Past and Super Mario World were so cool is because they were basically sequels to games that we never played because they had like 2 years to build stuff on the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
So screw it. Let the Wii U die a slow death. And when the NX comes out, I want to see shit that's sequels to games that we've never seen before.
Yeah, I do wonder what it's going to do for the NX to kind of have it now release like off cycle. You know what I mean? Like everything's been very consistent since like the GameCube and PS2 era that like we've gone on to PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii generally at about the same time. I mean, I know the 360 came out a year early, and then same onto this generation. I mean, Wii U came out a year early, but still, I mean, it's been very close. So now for Wii U to already move on to its next system, while Xbox One and PS4 are like probably still like getting their legs and like probably still growing at that point, it's going to be interesting to see how like consumers react to that. I don't know.
I mean, I think it could kind of go either way to an extent because if you think about it, so what? But 2017 at that point, PS4 and Xbox One will be
3 years old.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I would probably see those systems going at least 6 years minimum, if not longer.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it could be a potential Dreamcast situation, but I think that what Nintendo's trying to do, and this aggressive mobile strategy kind of echoes that, is they are trying to be like, hey, we're not competing with Microsoft and Sony. We're doing our own thing. we're competing with like mobile platforms will be more of their competitor than the PS4 and the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And they'll always be compared to it just by the nature of the beast, but I think that they realize that, like, hey, we can do better in this space. We don't need to try to mess with that stuff. So it could wind up where they get screwed because they came out off cycle, or they're just doing their own thing and it works.
Right.
I have the actual opposite perspective on this whole cycle thing. I'm hoping that Nintendo's going to get aggressive with the launch of the NX so that they can actually be caught up by the time PS5 and Xbox 2 come out. And because the way I see this, I think this generation is going to be even longer than last generation because of the cost of game development now. I think it's going to be another 8 to 10 years, maybe even pushing 10 years for the systems being active. And I'm hoping that Nintendo thinks, like, okay, we aren't actually competing with you guys. We're just going to have our systems come out every 5 years the way it used to be. And hopefully by the time Nintendo NX2 comes out, we're going to have the NX2
the Super NX. Excuse me, the Super NX.
The Super NX will come out alongside the PS5 and the Xbox 2. I'm hoping that the day comes when Nintendo is fully caught up, tech-wise also, and that this is no longer a problem.
I think that's a pipe dream, dude. I don't think that's ever going to happen again.
All right. It's either way, this news this morning was extremely exciting, and I think this is probably going to be the biggest news we get out of Nintendo, if not other platforms, potentially all year. And it came out as a weird sleeper press release this morning, and for some reason that's really exciting.
I think I might temper that a little bit and say this is the biggest news we'll get until June, but
yeah.
I mean,
I guess it planted a lot of huge seeds, even if we didn't get that many details today.
Yep.
A lot of huge seeds that probably each could have gotten their own press release.
Yeah.
Anyways, if you are watching this now and you have something to say, feel free to say so in the comments below or on our website, www.nintendoworldreport.com. Thank you so much for watching. I am pretty sure there are more people watching this now than we have ever had on our show in the past, maxing out at like 45. So thank you so much to all of you.
Wait, that's 4,500, right?
Yeah.
I wish.
That seems about right.
So it's been a great show. Thank you so much for watching. You can find Neil on Twitter at nron10, NRON10. You can find Scott at OKSoda, OK in the word soda. You can find me at CULAFIA, that is Kulafi, my last name, followed by the first letter of my first name. That'll be all. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Or shovel.